to gymkhanas, and in those days there weren't any horse boxes. So I remember there was a sort of big cattle truck owned by the local farmer, which he used to cart his.
The British monarchy has long emphasized tradition, ceremony, lineage, but behind the velvet curtains and polished smiles, the institution is experiencing one of its most catastrophic identity crises in recent memory. Who is at the core of the latest scandal? None other than Queen Camilla, and a stunning ruling from the House of Lords that has sent shockwaves across the royal family. In a startling behind-closed-doors vote, a small group of parliamentarians decided to deprive Camilla's children and extended family of all honorary titles, ties, and ceremonial privileges associated with the monarchy. Insiders perceive the decision, which is couched in legislative terminology, as streamlining royal operations, for what it is, a premeditated attack. What about Queen Camilla? She didn't take it well. According to sources within Clarence House, the Queen consort burst in wrath upon hearing the news. Screaming matches, smashed glass, demands prompt action from King Charles. Some suggest Camilla promised to leave public life completely unless the decision was changed. But the reality is, it may already be too late. For years, Camilla has discreetly elevated her children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, into unofficial royal circles. While they have never been given full titles, they have been treated with the same veneration as blood royals, including invitations to palace festivities, front-row seats at coronations, and even murmurs of future peerages. That dream appears to have now come crumbling down. While the public uproar has just recently begun, there are indications that this was more than simply a bureaucratic shakeup. It was a cleaning, a warning. Many think that the House of Lords did not act alone. Rumors circulate that Princess Anne gave her secret permission. Others claim Prince William and Kate have long fought for a monarchy that is not hijacked by second-tier relatives with disproportionate power. It wasn't just about titles. This was about power, legacy, and bringing the corporation closer to what Queen Elizabeth had envisioned. A monarchy of obligation, not dynasty building for outsiders. Camilla's authority is plainly dwindling, and her family's regal fantasy is being shattered piece by piece. The issue now isn't whether she'll recover, but if she'll respond. And as King Charles struggles to protect his wife while still safeguarding the dignity of the kingdom, one thing is certain: this conflict has only just begun. It was intended to be routine. Another peaceful day in the House of Lords, complete with ceremonial talks, arcane legislation updates, and polite debate. However, on this particular occasion, a discreet motion hit on the table, reverberating throughout the royal family. Without fanfare, news coverage, or public notification, the Lords voted on a resolution that would upend Queen Camilla's legacy and shame her family in the most public way possible. Behind closed doors, a group of senior peers, many with long-standing links to the late Queen Elizabeth and a firm grasp of conventional royal protocol, introduced what they called a clarity and streamlining proposal. The language was cautious, legalistic. However, its goal was clear: to terminate any royal recognition, ceremonial responsibilities, or inherited honorifics associated with Camilla's children, grandkids, and extended relatives. The timing was no coincidence. With the monarchy still reeling from years of scandal, from Prince Andrew's disgrace to Harry and Meghan's stunning revelations, the temptation to clean up the royal image was intense. For many in the establishment, Camilla's family symbolized a blurred border that had existed for far too long. They never received formal titles from Queen Elizabeth. However, as Charles succeeded to the throne and crowned Camilla queen, the line began to change. Some argue that this is going too far. Behind the scenes, the rumors became louder. Camilla's son, Tom Parker Bowles, allegedly received diplomatic security throughout his international travel, which is generally reserved for high-ranking royals. Laura Lopes, her daughter, had been promised front-row tickets for significant state occasions, including the coronation. There were even rumors of upcoming peerages. which would bind Camilla's dynasty to the realm's aristocratic destiny. The House of Lords, notably the more conservative side, was not amused. According to leaked sources from within Westminster, the vote was led by a coalition of aristocracy who supported Queen Elizabeth's agenda. Several of these lords have openly expressed disquiet about the monarchy's modernization under King Charles, notably his acceptance of Camilla's family. They saw the incorporation of step-relatives into the royal machinery as a hazardous erosion of the crown's symbolic authority. What made this vote even more explosive? Allegations that Princess Anne had secretly supported the move. Anne, a notorious traditionalist, reportedly became more irritated with Camilla's children's advancement. While always cordial in public, sources allege Anne saw them as civilian opportunists, not born to serve and unworthy of closeness to the throne. It is reported that her view was extremely influential among the lords, who today see her as the most devoted incarnation of Queen Elizabeth's austere legacy. And then Prince William remained silent. While he made no public pronouncements, some royal journalists noticed that William and Catherine had no complaints once the choice was made. In reality, palace insiders described their attitude as studied neutrality, a diplomatic code phrase signifying silent acceptance. Some accounts even claim that one of William's most trusted advisors helped develop the first plan, seeing it as an essential step towards simplifying the monarchy for future generations. The vote passed with a slim but overwhelming majority. Within hours, messages were sent to relevant ministries such as the College of Arms, the Cabinet Office, and Royal Etiquette sections. Guidelines were created to guarantee that Camilla's children and relatives were no longer granted royal access, ceremonial positions, or honorary titles. Their names would be deleted from the royal seating chart. Their visibility would be reduced. Whatever semblance of regal rank they ever had was gone. By dawn, the decision had been leaked. The tabloid headlines burst. "Royal bloodline reset," cried one. "Camilla's kids, cut out," another person yelled. And within Clarence House, Queen Camilla, formerly the silent force behind King Charles, is said to have been enraged. She'd struggled for decades to claim the throne. With one vote, the bridge she built for her children was demolished. But make no mistake, this was more than simply political manipulation. It was a message, a declaration. The monarchy was establishing a line in the sand, and Camilla's family had recently found themselves on the wrong side. Camilla's subtle yet planned metamorphosis began the minute she became Duchess of Cornwall, focusing not just on her public image, but also on her family's standing. While the world was preoccupied with Camilla's personal reinvention, her children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, were gradually brought into circles to which they had no right by birth. They were not royals. They were not tilted. However, they were handled as if they were. Let's start with Camilla's first marriage son, Tom Parker Bowles. Tom, a food critic by trade, has always had a strong network. But when his mother married Charles, his invites were altered. He was unexpectedly present at state functions, weddings, and memorials that had nothing to do with his profession, but everything to do with his surname. It wasn't long before murmurs began. Tom had begun traveling with a security detail, which was purportedly supported by the state rather than private sources. And it didn't end with protection. Tom routinely sat with foreign dignitaries at state banquets, rubbing elbows with ambassadors and royals from many nations. He was seen during Trooping the Colour, Christmas at Sandringham, and even sat at the front of Queen Elizabeth's funeral, a position often reserved for working royals or blood heirs. For someone who was not even a baron, this was remarkable. Then there's Camilla's daughter, Laura Lopes, whose existence had mostly gone unnoticed, until it changed. She married well, but her attendance at big royal gatherings created questions. Laura was front and center for Queen Elizabeth's burial procession, not concealed among the crowd or sat with the extended family, but in a position that exuded significance. Even her children were heavily featured during King Charles's coronation. prompting some to wonder if Camilla was secretly introducing her bloodline into the next royal generation. And if you think it was all ceremonial, think again. Laura was reportedly being considered for honorary roles with royal organizations, which are typically held for Princess Anne and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. Many saw the concept of someone without royal duties assuming symbolic positions as a dangerous precedent, blurring the borders between tradition and favoritism. Camilla's supporters stated she was merely being a mother, elevating her children in the same manner that any parent would, particularly one who had faced decades of public criticism. But her opponents, both inside and outside the palace, saw something even more troubling: a secret drive to build an alternative royal branch, one not grounded in duty or heredity, but in nepotism. Even more devastating were the business benefits. According to former employees, Tom and Laura's connections were frequently used in subtle ways: private meals with possible investors, soft power introductions at diplomatic events, and affiliation with firms keen to associate with royalty without paying for it. Their names lacked legal titles, yet the illusion was sufficient to open doors. By the time Camilla was proclaimed queen, her children had advanced socially, politically, and symbolically. For many within the institution, that was a bridge too far. The monarchy has always been based on identifiable lineages and earned obligations. Camilla's machinations threatened to transform it into a court of personal favors. So when the House of Lords robbed her family of their royal ties, it wasn't simply about formality. This was a correction, a message to the Queen herself. The crown is not a tool for promoting your family, and the repercussions of breaching that boundary had finally come to fruition. The Prince and Princess of Wales have perfected the art of deliberate quiet. While the rest of the royal family deals with headlines, allegations, and public criticism, William and Kate have found that quiet diplomacy is their most effective weapon. And in the instance of Camilla's family losing their royal legitimacy, many royal insiders feel it was not a pleasant accident for the Waleses, but rather a long-planned maneuver. For years, William has maintained a delicate balance between royal duty and personal conviction. He has publicly supported his father, King Charles, and has shown Camilla cautious friendliness. But privately, those close to William believe his trust has always been limited. He was very loyal to his mother, Princess Diana, and Camilla, no matter how many public relations efforts changed her image, will never be forgiven for the anguish she caused. That grudge, however discreetly kept, influenced more than just William's feelings. It shaped strategy. Royal observers have long noted that William and Kate kept a significant distance from Camilla's children, even while attending the same occasions. There were no cooperative engagements, common projects, or cordial encounters during high-profile appearances. While Camilla attempted to openly blur the lines between her family and the Windsors, William and Kate made no attempt to promote that story. Instead, they concentrated on their own image: youthful, contemporary, and grounded in legitimacy. Their three children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, symbolized the crown's future. There was no reason to artificially raise step-relatives or engage in status inflation. This subtle emphasis on hereditary hierarchy was not trivial. It was strategic. In reality, palace insiders believe William's staff had been planning a royal streamlining effort for years, one that would eventually limit who might be linked with the throne. Following the controversy surrounding Harry and Meghan, the necessity for a more focused monarchy became clear. However, Camilla's relatives remained a concern. They were not working royals, but they were increasingly regarded as if they were. Something needed to give. Enter Kate, whose power, while frequently underestimated in public, is widely recognized behind palace doors. Her long-term vision for the crown is clear: tradition with Polish, strength with compassion, and no room for self-serving power moves. Kate is not a fool. She observed Camilla gently nudge her children into royal spaces. She noticed the seating charts. She read the headlines, and she said nothing, at least in public. But quiet in the royal sphere does not imply inactivity. According to royal advisors, Kate and William both backed the House of Lords action, albeit not directly, but rather quietly. They did not need to lobby or yell. Their approval was understood. Their priorities were obvious. When the vote passed, neither of them raised a finger to oppose it. What happens afterwards? Catherine's peaceful stillness was seen as regal indifference, but it was actually something far more powerful: affirmation. The system had taken her side. Legacy and lineage would govern the monarchy's future rather than personal relationships or backdoor agreements. Diana believed in these same ideals. Camilla was devastated by this decision. But for William and Kate, it was a modest triumph, a demonstration of patience, a message that the new reign will be closely guarded, carefully controlled, and devoid of needless baggage. The Waleses did not have to shout in the royal survival chess game. They only needed to wait. With Camilla's family pushed out of the royal orbit, it's evident that William and Kate have been playing the long game and winning. For King Charles III, the title was meant to mark the end of a decades-long quest. He had endured public scorn, personal disgrace, and the heartbreaking loss of his mother. But now that he has the crown, Charles confronts a new battle, one that balances his commitment to Camilla against the monarchy's uncertain future. Those close to the king claim he was taken aback by the House of Lords' decision to deprive Camilla's children and family of honorary rights, not because he didn't see it coming, but because he thought his own influence might prevent it. He was wrong. Multiple sources corroborate that in the weeks running up to the vote, Charles contacted numerous senior lords to hear their concerns. Some people listened respectfully, others less so. The overall tone was clear. The institution needed to be safeguarded against reputation issues, and Camilla's family had become one. Too conspicuous, affluent, and completely unelected. Charles begged politely. He stressed that Tom and Laura were private individuals, not working royals. Their attendance at gatherings was family, not symbolic. The debate, however, fell apart behind closed doors. The fact was that Charles had allowed Camilla to walk a narrow line for far too long, enhancing her image, rank, and bloodline. The establishment saw this as more than simply lousy optics. It was risky. The decision came down quickly, and for the first time since taking the throne, Charles appeared politically impotent. He wasn't consulted, he wasn't warned. When the news broke, he was allegedly incandescent with frustration. Not wrath, not heartbreak, frustration. Because he understood that this was more than simply an institutional message. It was also a warning to him. Inside Clarence House, the consequences were swift. Camilla was thought to be heartbroken, her rage rivaled only by her sense of betrayal. She trusted Charles to protect her children no matter what, that his crown was sturdy enough to protect them. But the truth was even more brutal. The crown had turned against her, and Charles couldn't stop it. Now he finds himself in an untenable situation. On one side is a wife who stuck with him through scandal and humiliation, reshaping her public image to support his reign. On the other hand, there's the monarchy, the institution he was born to serve, which now requires him to value tradition above emotions. If he pushes back too aggressively, he risks causing further scandal. If he does nothing, he exacerbates the conflict inside his own family. Worse, he risks appearing weak. Perception is essential for a king whose rule remains unstable in the eyes of the populace. The widening split between Charles and William complicates matters even further. The Prince of Wales has made it clear that he wants a smaller monarchy. He envisions a future that is sleek, contemporary, and free of scandal. While William continues to show respect for his father in public, sources close to the family claim friction is rising behind palace walls. Charles, meantime, is thought to be conflicted. He cannot overturn the Lord's vote. That would necessitate a political battle that he no longer desires or has friends for. Nonetheless, doing nothing reduces his already dwindling authority. The king, formerly regarded as a unifier, is today viewed as a man out of time, clinging to personal allegiance while the crown demands distance. In a sad twist of destiny, Charles has finally become king, but he may have lost control of the monarchy he sought to lead. His crown is secured. What about his power? That is fading away. Some question if Charles is being dominated by powers beyond his control. She has never sought the spotlight. She doesn't grin for headlines or engage in emotional interviews. But Princess Anne, the late Queen's only daughter, may have just made the most planned move within the royal family in years, and she did it with the same precision and icy resolve she's shown her whole life. After Camilla's family was deprived of all honorary royal affiliations, a rising number of palace insiders are pointing to an unusual player behind the scenes: Anne, Princess Royal. For decades, Anne has been the monarchy's unshakable backbone. While others broke under public criticism or pursued Hollywood deals, she doubled down on service, with hundreds of engagements every year, no controversy, and no complaints. Anne was the late Queen Elizabeth's favorite for a reason. She never confounded duty with self-interest. Anne has never accepted individuals who do. Those close to her believe Anne's disdain of Camilla was always veiled but undeniable. While she tolerated her brother's contentious marriage, she never approved of Camilla's children having royal closeness. According to former courtiers, Anne considered Tom and Laura as outsiders who used their mother's status to elevate themselves above their rank. Deadweight, one former staffer said Anne nicknamed them. Nice enough people, but no royalty. And they should not pretend to be. Anne's silence during the House of Lords scandal has been deafening. Not a single comment. There was not even a glance of disapproval. But that speaks volumes. In royal circles, Anne's silence is never passive. It is deliberate. Rumors in Westminster indicate that she may have initiated the Lord's decision, rather than simply supporting it. Several senior lords are personal friends of Princess Anne. Many people worked alongside her on various patronages, military committees, and royal charities over the years. Speaking anonymously, one peer revealed that a conversation months prior had opened his eyes to the blurred lines surrounding Camilla and her family. That conversation, he claims, was with Anne. Nothing overt, simply a gentle reminder of what the monarchy is supposed to represent and who it is not supposed to include. Even more telling, Anne's growing engagement in palace logistics in recent months. She has apparently taken a keener interest in seating arrangements, ceremonial orders of precedence, and royal dress requirements. These aren't details most royals meddle with, but Anne does, and in those nuances lies control, influence, power. While Charles governs, it's Anne who still defends the edifice their mother constructed. And for Anne, Camilla's children meant a loss of that framework. To many traditionalists, the monarchy is sacrosanct because it's restricted. You are either born into it or you're not. You either serve it or you don't. There is no intermediate ground. Camilla's attempt to smuggle her family via the back door, no titles legally, but all the privileges informally, was a challenge to that ideology. And Anne, ever the enforcer, did what no one else dared. She ripped the rug out from under them. She didn't require headlines. She did not need allies. She merely needed time. With Camilla reeling, Charles surrounded, and William and Kate on top, Anne's role is being quietly reevaluated. She is no longer considered the hardest-working royal, but rather the monarchy's quiet regulator, the steadfast executor of Queen Elizabeth's ideals. And for those who believe the monarchy is led by males, think again. Behind palace gates, some now refer to her as the quiet executioner. When Anne determines that someone no longer belongs, they disappear. What about Camilla's family? They are already gone. Camilla's rage may have grabbed the headlines, but the true tale is even more disturbing. A silent conflict behind the royal walls, a monarchy crumbling under the weight of its own contradictions. The House of Lords may have dealt the last blow, but the fracture lines had been developing for years. This wasn't only a rejection of Camilla's family, it was a rejection of everything she had sought to create: influence without heredity, access without accountability, and a legacy woven together by closeness to power. The message was clear: lineage matters. Service is important. Camilla's children, no matter how polished or connected they were, never fit in with the crown's inner circle. Their place has now been removed with precise precision. No titles, no awards, and no ceremonial positions. Only the frigid stillness of seclusion. And as Camilla rages behind closed doors, King Charles is trapped in a nightmare of his own devising. He attempted to reconcile two worlds: his love for Camilla and his loyalty to the Queen. However, the monarchy has made a choice, and it did not choose love. It chose order, history, legacy, most importantly, control. Meanwhile, Princess Anne continues her peaceful march through the pandemonium, unshaken, unmoved, and stronger than ever. Kate and William say nothing, but their silence tells much. Their future vision is taking form, and there will be no space for favoritism or blurred royal lines. So where does this leave Camilla? Alone, embattled, and for the first time in decades, she is without the institutional shield she has meticulously crafted. When the monarchy decides you're no longer part of the corporation, the fall is quick and unforgiving. The crown is still intact, but it is not unbreakable. And with every hushed purging, every cut title, and every silent scream ringing through the palace hallways, one thing becomes frighteningly clear. The struggle for the essence of the monarchy is far from done, and Queen Camilla may have already lost.